Ooh, I'm very nervous for this one. Ooh, this one feels bad. Hey guys, welcome back to this mess. This is actually my second attempt at filming this video because today we are going to be talking about Shane Dawson and, more importantly, his past content. And that content is incredibly enraging and triggering, and I found myself yelling a lot in my first take, so I decided to take a step back and reassess. My goal here is not to hurt Shane Dawson or his fans, but really it's to condense and explain the circumstances of Shane's career in the beginning process and elaborate on a lot of the controversies he's found himself in over the course of his now 16-year-long career. I think it's important with a democratized platform like YouTube that we are very specific and informed on who we support with our views and dollars. So if you've been on YouTube in the last 15 years, you've probably seen Shane Dawson come across your timeline, either in his multi-part video series with controversial YouTubers, or in one of the many collaboration videos he's done with fellow YouTubers over the years. Shane Dawson has a little over 20 million subscribers on YouTube, and he's also been nominated and won many awards, from the Teen Choice Awards down to the Streamies, and in 2019 was dubbed Content Creator of the Year for his outstanding success in his multi-part docuseries. He's acted in a few films and also directed a feature film of his own called Not Cool, and he's also produced music. I didn't know that, actually. Shane Dawson has a mixtape. But what may be more well known than these accomplishments are the various clips, videos, and tweets showing Shane Dawson using derogatory language towards people of color, saying the N-word, using animals in sexual ways to convey humor, and donning blackface in a majority of his early content. Now, there are dozens upon dozens of videos discussing what I'm about to get into today, and there are just as many videos in support of Shane. Well, maybe not nowadays, but for a long time, Shane Dawson has been supported very heavily by the YouTube community, and one can argue is still one of the reigning creators of this platform. And it's not like Shane doesn't acknowledge or know that his past content is controversial. He has published many apologies over the years, and most recently published a 2020 apology where he fully, or according to himself, he fully addresses all of the things in which he has been called out for. And many of the reasons that people tend to either write off or even forgive Shane Dawson for these actions and content is because they believe he was just making jokes and they weren't meant to be too serious, or it was a product of the time period or the media that Shane Dawson was being influenced by. But my personal favorite is when people say that Shane Dawson isn't the same person that he used to be. And I understand it's kind of supposed to be like metaphorical, like he's changed. But that Shane Dawson screaming the N-word is the same Shane Dawson that had posted the 2020 apology. Both lacked the understanding of their actions and have not taken proper accountability for them. This is a content warning for those who may be easily triggered by subjects relating to race, SA, hard R, or any other kind of triggering subject. Please proceed with caution, and if you are not in a safe place to absorb the content in this video, please refrain. Go take care of yourself, get a cup of water, you gotta hydrate, baby. I've broken this video up into 3 sections. The first being Shane Dawson is not funny. The second, Shane Dawson is not an empath. And the third and final part, Shane Dawson is not canceled. So let's just get into it, shall we? Shane Dawson created his channel in September of 2005 and initially started creating content that was more vlog related, or the early stages of vlogs. He would come home from his job at, I believe it was like Jenny Craig or one of those like weight loss places. His mom and his brother also worked there, but he would come home and recap his day and post it on YouTube, and slowly but surely he gained quite a consistent following and viewer count. As Shane continued to post content on YouTube, he also started venturing out into making more skit-like content like Smosh was doing at the time. And a lot of these skits are the source of Shane Dawson's initial racist behavior. A lot of these skits include Blackface that Shane Dawson wore.
Hey, where's JT? It was time to let go of him, and I just wanted to let you know that I, Liberty Van Fett, am choosing you to be my new object of affection. You should be! I'm sorry, when I become Nikki, I just get so angry. So back to the question, my best friend is Kim.
That ghetto tacky ass weave she got from the corner store. And that face, ugh, she got a face of a beast.
It includes clips of him screaming the N-word.
Oh, the bitch monkey woman, you're the best!
Word of the day is... See how that over there owes me $5? That over there? It's like the N-word for you, Kate. What's an N-word for Asians? Cheeky?
Oh yeah, cheek.
Cheeky ass bitch. Now, I'm not gonna lie. When I take a picture of myself, I like to do Asian eyes. Is that offensive? Asian eyes!
It's a lot of videos that are a bit uncomfortable to watch today. And I just have to say, I never watched his older content. I didn't even know what his older content was about. I watched one video because a friend of mine at the time was obsessed with him, and it wasn't for me. Nothing clicked. So I was completely unaware of the absolute buffoonery Shane Dawson was doing on his channel. Let's now look at Shane Dawson's 2014 apology titled My Apology, Blackface and Offensive Videos. And while I believe that Shane is doing his best to apologize for the content he had created for so long, it's very clear that he doesn't really understand what he's apologizing for. I do find it a bit inexcusable for a grown man to not understand how blackface was offensive. I have a definition of blackface from the Merriam-Webster website. And it says blackface is defined as dark makeup worn to mimic the appearance of a black person, especially to mock or ridicule black people. When Shane paints his face, he's using it as a means to mock the characters he's playing or mock the races of the characters he's playing.
Hey, what's up, you guys? Yes, it is me, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. How fly do I look? I mean, really.
That ghetto tacky ass weave she got from the corner store. And that face, ugh, she got a face of a beast.
Confused as Paris Hilton gets when she does charity work.
Attention, black people of Africa. I come bearing food.
These videos of these Asian bitches trying to do makeup and trying to show people how to do makeup. And you know what? I ain't racist. I ain't trying to be racist, but all I'm saying is bitches should stick to what they know. And what they need to be doing is making videos about how to give good blowjobs and get good nails. That was kind of racist, wasn't it? I didn't mean it to be. Oops. Whatever. I already said it. Can't take it back. Because I don't invite the black neighbors over to play in my pool doesn't mean I'm racist. It means I'm careful. Yo, what's up, MTV? My name is Rashandala, and I like to dance, eat Cheetos. Your total is $255. Oh, shit. I don't got that. Man, we could just rob this.
And there's something I've noticed about this apology video, along with many other YouTuber apologies. Let's remember that Shane is not the only one on this platform that needs to be held accountable for their terrible actions. Shane Dawson does a lot to minimize the seriousness of his actions in his videos. A lot of times he'll say things like, oh, this is offensive and dumb, or stupid and dumb, or I was dumb and it really embarrassed me and made me feel bad. And it's a lot of manipulative language that all cushions around the word racist. What Shane Dawson was doing was racist. He was saying racist things, and he was doing racist acts. And by Shane continuously avoiding to call it for what it was, it makes it easier for his audience and for people who are maybe even just passing by to accept it and move on. Walk through a scenario with me very quickly. Let's say I'm your friend, right? And, well, we are friends, but let's say in a hypothetical, I'm your friend and I borrow your car and crash it. I sleep with your partner, and then I don't know, I rip up your graduation dress before you're about to walk on to the podium. Now, if I were to sit you down and apologize to you by saying, I'm sorry I did all that stupid stuff, if I just kept saying it was stupid, dumb things and not saying for what it was, which is I committed adultery, I damaged your property, and I ruined your experience. It's so important to use language in a very specific and direct way when apologizing, and using statements that generalize like stupid and dumb and offensive and these and that. It doesn't get to the core of the issue in which people are mad and upset and asking for accountability. There's also the argument that Shane Dawson, at that time of this apology video and prior, was creating content that was reflective of the humor at the time. I can understand shows like Family Guy and South Park really influencing Shane as he grew up in the mid-2000s. They started in the 90s, but you know, he was able to digest the information by the time he was in the 2000s. You know what I mean? There's an amazing video created by D'Angelo Wallace covering Shane Dawson, and although it's unfortunately been deleted, there is a re-uploaded version that I'll link down below. But I'd like to include a section in which he really does a fantastic job of explaining why Shane Dawson's blackface differs from the other forms of blackface.
Now, a lot of times when you bring up blackface or any of this stuff, people say it was a different time. And you know what? They're not necessarily wrong, but here's how I've been looking at it recently. Shane Dawson got his start in like the mid-2000s. And are there other examples of people doing blackface in the mid-2000s for comedic purposes? Yes. Does that mean it was normal in 2008 to literally don blackface? Absolutely not. 2008 wasn't some mythical racism world where people just wore blackface and it was funny. This was a thing that specific creators were doing and getting away with for God knows why. But even at that, Shane Dawson's content is not just blackface, it's literal minstrelsy. Here's why I say that. Jimmy Kimmel has done blackface. Jimmy Fallon has done blackface. Robert Downey Jr. has done blackface. The Office, 30 Rock, Community. But guess what? What they were doing was actually completely different than what Shane Dawson was doing. Now, just so we're clear, I don't condone any of it. Maybe that's just because I know how to tell a good joke without painting my face, that's just me. But in all of the shows I named, black people were not the target of the joke. Again, blackface is still racist, and it's not racist just because you weren't trying to be racist. But if you look at the context of each of those specific cases I just brought up, they were not wearing blackface so that they could make black people look bad. It was more so to reflect on the characters and how stupid they were for wearing blackface in the mid-2000s. Shane Dawson, on the other hand, every time he donned blackface, it was specifically to make black people look bad. It simply was not the same content that people compare it to when they say this was a thing at the time.
And I don't want to lecture or step out of bounds when talking about this very serious issue, but I do want to include something from an article I found on StanfordNews.com that emphasizes an article written by Stephen O. Roberts and Michael Rizzo titled The Psychology of American Racism. I'll link it down below, or I'll link the Stanford article down below. And I have to read my notes for this because I want to be precise. In this piece, they elaborate on 7 factors that contribute to racism in the United States. And there's one in particular that spiked my interest relating to Shane Dawson. They define one of the 7 factors contributing to American racism as media, which legitimizes overrepresented and idealized representations of white Americans, while marginalizing and minimizing people of color. How the media portrays or does not portray racial groups plays a pivotal role in reinforcing American racism. Representation alone is not the only piece. Between 2003 and 2009, the proportion of high-status black characters declined while the proportion of low-status black characters tripled. Researchers compared how often people were depicted as criminals and victims on television to actual crime reports and found that black Americans were overrepresented as criminals and underrepresented as victims, whereas white Americans were underrepresented as criminals and overrepresented as victims. Viewers exposed to such portrayals are more likely to perceive black people as criminal, report anti-black attitudes, and support harsher criminal sentencing against black people. Shane Dawson does apologize for his contribution to that narrative, but I don't think he has fully digested how harmful that has been to communities and how difficult it is for him to say what he did, which was act, do, and say racist things on a publicized platform like YouTube. There's an instance as recent as 2018, 2019 that also makes me think that Shane Dawson hasn't fully digested the seriousness of his actions and the content he put out. In a video published by James Charles, he featured both Shane and Ryland, and their whole challenge was to do one side of James's face with makeup, and Shane Dawson decided to replicate his Shanae character's makeup on James. That particular character, Shanae, has been criticized for a variety of things. It's one of the characters that Shane uses to communicate and portray stereotypes of Black people or Black culture. And what's even worse is that he's portraying a white person who's appropriating Black culture but not understanding that what they're doing is wrong. So he decided to paint James Charles up as her in 2018, 4 years after apologizing for his offensive content. That tells me that he is not ashamed of that content. He even featured Shanae in a video as recent as 2021 when he made his big comeback. He is not ashamed of his work. He's ashamed that people found it offensive and gave him so much crap for it. But unfortunately, blackface was not the only thing in Shane Dawson's repertoire that was considered, let's say, distasteful. Something that was almost like Shane's calling card was the fact that he would express a lot of sexual interest in animals and children.
Maybe she can't hear us. Give it.
Okay.
Twerk for us.
Oh,
here we go. She's moving in front of us. Yeah. Now tell her to show herself.
Stop it, Shane.
I would molest kids on my street. And that's another thing that they say that kids who are abused, sexually abused, do. Like, I would, make kids on my street, take their pants off and I'd spank them or, do weird shit to them. And it didn't feel weird at the time, but looking back, I'm like, ew. I was, molesting kids. I was a kid, too.
Were they your peers?
Yeah, I was probably, 8 and they were 7 or something.
Right.
And I apologized to them. I found them on Facebook. I'm like,
You
sorry
did?
for molesting you.
Did they remember?
They're like, one of them did. One of them was like, yeah, that's why my family made me stop hanging out with you.
Section, giving me a caption for this picture. Is this picture considered child porn? I don't think so, right? It's only child porn if you can, see a penis. Either way, I'm totally printing it out and taping it on my bathroom mirror. Just for inspiration. Damn. Oh, if Justine wasn't watching, I would rape all of you.
As I was mid-story about one incident where my dog licked my butthole while I was masturbating and I didn't push him away. Come on, we've all been there.
Oh yeah, Daddy likes.
Okay, guys, your first competition challenge is called Lick It Clean. Who wants to go first?
It's you.
Now, I'm not gonna say he is a rapist or a child rapist or a cat rapist, which we'll get into, but I do want to emphasize how weird it is that he thinks these things are funny. Now, one of the things that has just really stuck with me in a bad way was the channel that Shane Dawson created with the Fine Bros titled Hey, It's Millie. This was created back in 2010 and lasted about 2 years. They garnered a little over 200,000 subscribers, and right after the Fine Bros created this series, they also started producing shows like Kids React on their React channel. I have to emphasize that the reason I'm smiling is because it's really uncomfortable, and that's kind of a facial spasm that I have. It's this emoji is what it is, really. The show Hey, It's Millie centered around an 8-year-old girl that was a puppet named Millie, and the videos would always be Millie and one other person, more often Shane Dawson, but other times it would also be one of the Fine Bros. The other one was below Millie, puppeteering her. The whole haha joke of it all, according to Shane Dawson and the Fine Bros, is that Millie is constantly sexually assaulted.
You a fan of the D?
Are you talking about your big dick? A pony that has a chocolate. I ate it. It tasted like an O. Henry bar.
But it wasn't just sexual innuendos. Millie would describe and go into detail about some really raunchy and adult-like content. And she's an 8-year-old girl. And not only that, she's also a fan of Shane Dawson. There's a comment by Kiplodeon, who I will link their thread down below that contains a lot of the Hey It's Millie clips, but I want to quote something they mentioned in the thread. Saying that Millie made sexual innuendos is a huge understatement. In every single episode, the puppet who was made to represent an 8-year-old girl would make countless references to sex, abuse, and her love for, wait for it, Shane Dawson. There's a video clip in particular from the thread that I'm going to continue to reference that shows Raffi Fine on camera with Millie, where they are having a conversation about pornography. A grown man is describing and explaining pornography to an 8-year-old girl.
Understanding this right.
Maybe you're not.
I don't know what porn is.
Oh.
So what is pornography?
Porn is a type of filmmaking.
Oh, it's a filmmaking! Yay! Like this! We're making porn together!
No, we're not
Everyone
making
come on
porn.
down and watch Ralphie the grown man make porn with an 8-year-old!
Now, I don't know about you, but I've seen enough Special Victims Unit to know that that's not okay in normal circumstances, let alone to be broadcasted. There's another video in which Millie is sitting with Shane Dawson. Shane and Millie are discussing Selena Gomez, and Millie starts to go into deep description about her and about Miranda Cosgrove, who was underage at the time, talking about touching Miranda Cosgrove sexually.
From watching Selena Gomez!
Selena Gomez.
Yeah, and iCarly! She's so cool and attractive! I love the way her hair flows down her back and brushes over her tight ass. Oh, that shit's so hot! And you know her and her butch friend experiment. I mean, wouldn't you, DZ? Oh, and her newly developed breast. They're speaking to me. They're saying, hey, Millie, do you want to suck on us? Ooh. I mean, don't you think she's sexy, DZ? Hey, what does sexy mean?
Whoa! Jump off!
DZ, did you just come?
What? No!
Wait, DZ, follow-up question. What does coming mean? Can you explain it to me in graphic detail?
Yeah. No.
Whoa! That reminds me of the thing that my dad used to shove in my mouth when I was 3. Memories.
A 30-something-year-old man speaking in that kind of graphic detail about an underage girl's body. I'll let you sit with that one for a second. I have to emphasize that these videos were not age restricted. They were not marketed as adult funny. You know how Adult Swim has those shows like Robot Chicken where it's claymation, which is typically associated with child films. There is no indication, no warning on the subject matter in which these two people are doing with the personification of an 8-year-old girl. They also produced a music video that was a parody of Willow Smith's I Whip My Hair Back and Forth, and Millie, I don't even want to get into what she's saying in the music video. I'll just put a clip in. Now, the following clip disturbs me on so many levels. Millie is shown completely naked and is simulating and describing masturbating. She's talking to Shane, asking him to fuck her. Shane tells her to continue to touch herself. Then the other fine bro enters, puppeteering a male puppet that I'm not familiar with, and says he's going to rape Millie for talking to Shane.
What does fucking mean? Shane? Is fucking bad?
Why don't you touch yourself a little bit?
What do you mean? Like my face?
Wait, you're not moving your lips.
Oh. Like my face?
No, touch a little lower.
Like my underdeveloped breast?
Hey! Who the fuck is this guy, Millie? Millie! Who the fuck is this guy?
Why are you so
I'm
angry?
gonna fucking rape you, bitch! Turn the fuck around!
What's wrong?
Turn the fuck!
Shane, wait,
Hey,
Billy,
put the
hold on.
camera here!
Billy,
Ah.
hold on. Shane, hold on, Billy. Shane, what's great?
And they all burst into laughs. So funny. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that Shane is more responsible for these videos than the Fine Bros are. They both should be held accountable for this depraved content that they decided to publish to children. And you can't argue with me and say that they don't know that their audience is children. Shane has acknowledged it multiple times.
You have fans who want to fuck you? Like, but young, like a lot of these young girls, like 12, just, oh, shove a cock in my mouth, like all this stuff. They'll like grab my butt and I'll hear them like, I touched his ass, oh, I want him to fuck my pussy.
Like, the seriousness of these videos, I don't think people are getting it. A child is more susceptible to grooming if that is the environment they are constantly exposed to. And you might think I'm being extreme here, but with the amount of people that have come across that channel or did come across that channel when it existed, you can't tell me that that scenario didn't happen at least once. It's always men who make rape jokes and just think that they're so funny. Like, what about rape is so funny to you? I can't understand that, and it's always men that look like they belong in a sewer. It's probably the meanest thing I've said this whole video. It wasn't at Shane Dawson, so don't come for me. I strongly encourage people to stop supporting the Fine Bros. They have been getting away with so many awful things, the same as Shane Dawson. I feel like those brothers, they deserve jail. Another instance that I think is important to bring up is again from his podcast, Shane and Friends, where he and his co-host are having a discussion about certain things that they find ugh about. You know, that was like the section. What's my ugh of the day? Whatever. And on this, Shane was describing a time in which him and his girlfriend ran into a 6-year-old girl. They run into this girl and she tells Shane that she has like 100,000 or 200,000 Instagram followers. She has more than Shane did at that time. Shane said that he was scrolling through and saying that she was a sexy little 6-year-old and she was posing and doing all this and all that. And somehow the conversation turns into Shane explaining his justification for pedophilia, and that is how he frames it.
Are like, first of all, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but like, she's like sexy.
You're disgusting.
I know, listen, we've talked about pedophilia
this
before.
is Shane, like, do not say this, and like, I don't even want to talk about it. Like, you will get arrested. Like, he kind of can.
Listen,
he has his justification for pedophilia,
okay.
And it's so disturbing. And like, I just pretend that he doesn't.
Okay, wait, no. Let me explain. Let me explain.
Oh God.
Here's my justification for pedophilia.
I can't.
Okay, first of all, let me just say, having sex with children or touching children or anything of that nature is terrible.
Sure.
You should not do it. But here's my thing. People have foot fetishes. People have fetishes about, everything. And there's websites on the internet where they can look at that weird, creepy shit and jerk off to it. Okay, fine. Everybody do your thing. So why is it when somebody looks at Google's like naked baby on Google and jerks off to it, they can get arrested? I don't understand that.
Because there's a naked because somebody took a picture of a naked baby. And then by the way, they're not Googling naked baby. They're Googling like, I'm not going to say what they're Googling. I mean, I watch a lot of Law and Order.
Well, here's the worst part of it. I actually went to Google and I'm like,
oh God,
I don't want to see.
You could get arrested.
I know, but I didn't want to see child porn. But I just wanted to see like, okay, let me pretend like I'm a pedophile for a second.
Okay, by the way, just for the record, the police, I have nothing to do with this. I didn't know this. Like, you can literally get arrested for saying
I know. Listen, let me finish. Sorry. So I typed in naked baby. First of all, I don't understand why anybody would be turned on by that. But
that's the first good thing you said.
But they were sexy. I'm kidding. Okay, back to the Instagram. So I look at this little girl's pictures, and she had makeup on. She had her tongue out. She was doing like the peace sign. She was doing a backflip, and one of them she was in the shape of a pretzel, and she put #NoFilters, #pretzel. I mean, like, I'm not making this up. Why are children...
Was she really 6 or was she like 9?
She was 6.
She must have been like 10.
No, I asked her. Her bio on Instagram is, I'm 6, bitch.
Stop it.
No, so why... Oh, first of all...
Is she like Honey Boo Boo? Is she fat?
No, she was like a skinny little sexy 6-year-old.
Alright, can we please move on?
No, so that's my ugh. Why are children having Instagrams, and why do they almost have as many followers as I do?
That's your ugh. Mine is...
Okay, fine. Move on. But I'm seriously...
I don't know. I don't have an answer.
I'm ugging out about it.
It's disturbing. And so many... By the way, they're all your followers, probably. Like, they're all... That's who's following you.
Who, 6-year-olds?
Uh-huh.
No.
Maybe.
Oh my God. #. Yum.
I know I've said this a few times, but what the fuck? Now, there's another instance that Shane actually does address in his 2020 apology, which we're going to talk about soon. There's a video where Shane and his girlfriend Lisa are explaining the birds and the bees in a very irresponsible way to Shane's young cousin at the time, who was about 12 or 13. And in this clip, Shane instructs his girlfriend Lisa to take a Peep plushie, you know, like the little marshmallow treats. She takes a Peep and he tells her to mimic the penetration process of a penis into a vagina.
We want to know. We have a question.
What is it? Very important question. And you don't need to feel shy about it.
No, you really.
It's natural.
It's natural. Is there anybody around? No?
It's natural for a girl at your age.
Yeah. So we want to talk to you. We want to explain what sex is. We did get
Yeah.
real quiet.
Oh, where's the other Peep? We should probably explain.
We'll use Peeps. Okay, well, one Peep and then we'll use you.
Oh.
Okay, so we'll just pretend like that's, you know, I mean, that works.
You see, this happens.
See, oop.
Ah! And then you're so happy when you're an adult. I can't believe I'm endorsing this.
They're asking this 13-year-old girl if she's had her period yet and if she knows what she's doing with sex, and it's blatantly uncomfortable. And I don't really care if Shane's cousin gave consent to this or if Shane's parents gave consent to this. This is not something that should have happened, and it's gross and wrong. Although Shane's content, even at the time, was considered controversial, he was still able to obtain opportunities outside YouTube and create a feature film called Not Cool that was a part of the competition reality show titled The Chair. The whole point of the show The Chair was to take two directors from two different backgrounds, one person who was more classically trained, went to film school and all that jazz, and the other director was more learning on their feet, teaching themselves. Shane Dawson was the director that was not classically trained, and a director by the name A.M. Lucas was the other. She didn't go by that name at the time, but that's the name she's going by now, so that's what we're gonna do. Now, both of these directors were given the same budget, the same location, and the same resources, and even the same script requirements. Like, they were both supposed to center around a main character named Tori, a love interest named Scott, and then like a side character named Heather. They would also have to both base their story in Pennsylvania, and they both had to require certain scenes like Scott and Tori running into each other, or Scott and Tori going off and vandalizing someone's house or something like that. There were certain things that both movies had to contain. That way, whatever interpretation either director comes up with, people can kind of compare both and see where one did better or vice versa.
Ciao. Anyway, so
Shane Dawson's film, Not Cool, was the result of this show. It is terrible. It is so bad. No. It is available on Amazon if you're super duper curious, but I'm telling you, you don't need to watch it. There are plenty of videos out there that react and break it down for you. I'll even link a few that I've enjoyed. Shane Dawson's story centers around four main characters. Scott, played by Shane Dawson himself. Tori, played by Charmini? I don't know how to pronounce your name, I'm sorry. Janie, played by Michelle, and Joel, played by Drew Monson. If you've ever seen Shane's videos in like 2017, you've seen Drew. He's great, I love him. Although, did not love him in this movie. And to give you a basic summary of the plot, Scott was a former prom king and apparently aspiring photographer who has returned to his hometown during his Thanksgiving break at college and is immediately dumped by his girlfriend after she attempts to fellatio Scott through a glory hole in a train station bathroom. Scott's friend Joel is from Cornell, and he is also back for Thanksgiving break, and he is super duper in love with Scott's younger sister named Janie, who's still in high school. Another person who's back for Thanksgiving break is Tori. They all went to the same high school, and she is still knee-deep in the angst and turmoil of all the bullying she had experienced from Shane and others during their time in high school. Scott and Tori form an unlikely relationship after Tori runs Scott over with her car outside of a party, but Tori doesn't forgive Scott for how he helps humiliate her in high school. And Scott does his best throughout this movie to win her over over and redeem himself for the self-obsessed person that he was at the beginning of the movie. And he tries to win over Tori in the process. That is the nicest way I could possibly describe this movie to you. Now let's get into the bullshit. The reason that this film has a whopping score of 14% on Rotten Tomatoes is because it is riddled with racist, homophobic, sexist, fatphobic, body shaming, ableist, and just downright scatological jokes. I mean, this movie would make Adam Sandler blush. In the first 26 seconds of this movie, they make a fat joke, and they make a racist joke, and they make a gay joke. It's just, Shane Dawson wasted no time being as obscene as he could have possibly been with this movie. And he even acknowledges at that time that he wanted to go harder because of how much scrutiny he was getting behind the scenes. Now, while he was a part of the show The Chair and was filming the process of Not Cool, they were also filming the entire behind the scenes that did not show Shane in a good light. Before I get into that, I want to describe a few more things that are in this movie that need to be mentioned. They need to be mentioned. There's a homeless man eating poop within the first few minutes of the film. There's also a character played by Lisa, who was Shane Dawson's girlfriend at the time. She plays Tori's older sister, and she is blind. And every joke around her is about the fact that she's blind. And although this character is seen as like, oh my god, she can do so many things, it's amazing, because she's blind, it's really insulting and ableist. And there's even a point in the film where they say that the reason that she's blind is because she is constantly blacked out drunk, which is just distasteful. Let's just say it's distasteful and move on. They also make a lot of jokes about mental illness. There's a character that everyone calls crazy, and considering how currently Shane Dawson really tries hard to portray this mental health awareness, especially his own mental health, he makes a big deal about his anxiety, which is, you know, in every right. But to see that and compare it to how he portrays people who have mental illness in his first feature film, I can't imagine that the narrative of him being a mental health advocate is real. There's also full frontal nudity at one point, again from a homeless person, and it's just, why? And I could go on, but it's just fully 93 minutes of absolute horror. And not only that, the plot itself has been scrutinized quite a bit because there's no development between the characters that would make sense. The relationships don't make sense, the dynamic, the dialogue, it's all very bad as a collective. And it was so bad, in fact, that Zachary Quinto, who was one of the producers on the show The Chair, who was also supposed to have his name as a producer on both films, Zachary actually pulled his participation completely out of Not Cool midway through the production, and Shane made it known that he was upset about that during the behind the scenes footage. I mean, if it's so bad that your producer's like, I don't even want credit, he didn't even do anything for the movie, really, so it wasn't like his credit would have meant anything. But the fact that he was like, I didn't have any part in this and I don't want my name on it, like, that's bad.
Cool got a lot of really negative reviews. Shane's movie got eviscerated in the critical landscape. I mean, absolutely destroyed.
One review said that if you enjoy my movie, you must be a sociopath.
That was in the Los Angeles Times.
And I want to make a comparison of Not Cool to another film that one can consider incredibly offensive and obscene, which is Pink Flamingos. Pink Flamingos is a 1972 film directed by John Waters. If you don't know John Waters, he's interesting. Pink Flamingos is a part of his Trash trilogy, which also featured Female Trouble and Desperate Living. These films' main purpose was to combine elegant color patterns, settings, and sceneries with grotesque acts and events that critique social attitudes towards a multitude of things. Babs Johnson, who is played by Divine the drag queen, is the filthiest person alive. She eats dog poop. She steals meat from the butcher by hiding it between her legs. She keeps her mom in a cage and only feeds her eggs. She has casual incest with her son. She's not a good person, and she loves that about herself. But Babs has some competition for her title as the filthiest person in the world, and that is Raymond and Connie Marble, who run a business where they kidnap women, impregnate them, and then sell those babies to lesbian couples. This movie's wild. If you can find it, I highly recommend, but just know you're not going to be okay for a couple days. I had to sit for a while. I'm still sitting. The surface level similarity that I see between Not Cool and Pink Flamingos is that both films use grotesque imagery and shock value. But where they differ is the context and purpose of those gross acts. There's a quote from an article, which I will link down below, and it says, "The characters in Pink Flamingos challenge normative ideas about equality, gender, and family, confronting perceptions of good taste. Pink Flamingos attacks an elitist culture that excludes many communities, such as queer folk and punks." That is a really big thing with John Waters. He loves the idea of taking things that are in bad taste and turning them into good taste by using very skillful and artful directing techniques and mise en scène. Mise en scène? Mise en scène. Oui. But with the plot and the concept of Not Cool being produced on the chair in mind, I would now like to step into the next section of this video titled Shane Dawson is Not an Empath. Shane Dawson has made it very well known that he thinks of himself as an empath. He wants to help everybody, he wants to hear everybody's perspective, he just wants to be a nice, sweet, good person to everyone. But if you were to watch the behind the scenes footage of Not Cool, you would not get that impression whatsoever. So the point of this footage was to document the process of these young directors creating their first major film. And in that, Shane Dawson had displayed a lot of aggressive and, I want to say, bullying-like behavior towards his producers and cast. When casting the movie, they had a very hard time finding actors willing to be a part of the film due to its obscene and overdone grotesque scenes. And for actors who are just starting out in the industry especially, they do not want to be a part of a film that could come back and bite them in the ass. Can you imagine going out to calls or auditions with this on your resume? I mean, oh, girl, blocked at the door. And even if the character in the movie wasn't doing something grotesque, it is so hard to root for anybody in this movie. Every character in this movie is irredeemable. They're all assholes in some way or another. Shane Dawson's producers explained to him that the scene in particular that a lot of people have a problem with is when the homeless person starts eating human feces. And when suggested that this part of the movie be taken out for the sake of casting the film or moving the production along, Shane Dawson retaliates aggressively.
The script is not that raunchy. Somebody out there is a rat and they're going around saying this is the raunchiest movie ever made, and it's pissing me the off.
And he says, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I've had clients that have gone online, watched Shane's stuff, and said, I don't want to be a part of that.
When I was an actor, I was auditioning for everything. I don't quite understand the logic of being picky when you have no job.
It's been mentioned many, many times that is a problem for people. So if we just lose that, I'm just saying.
I'm not taking anything out of the movie to please a bunch of out-of-work actors in Pittsburgh who should be lucky to get an audition for a feature film.
His producer tries to explain to him that no, these people have jobs, but they don't want to work on a film that's going to ruin their reputation. That conversation in particular ends with him storming out saying that he doesn't want to deal with it anymore and that, you know, he's too sensitive for these kinds of things.
Well, no, but that's the problem. They do have jobs. And one woman in particular who's a professor who's up for tenure.
Well, then why am I saying professors? Where are the actors?
It's a smaller, more limited talent pool than out of New York or LA.
We can't find actors. If we can't find crew, then how are we going to fix this to make Pittsburgh look great? Because Zach Quinto ain't doing anything. I think no director has ever taken anything out of a movie to get somebody to audition. I'm angry that we're finding out about this 2 days before we start filming the movie. I don't know. I'm going to go.
Shane, stop it. You can't go. We have too much to do.
I'm going to go and I'm going to do this in my
During the filming process, you can see the facial expressions of the actors are just uncomfortable because Shane is arguing aggressively with his producer, who was also his friend at the time. There's a particular scene captured where Shane is giving directions to Janie when she's on a date with Drew, Joel's character, whatever, and the producer says to Shane, we can't say Facebook that many times because we didn't pay for the use of that word. So be sure to only minimize and use it a couple couple of times. But Shane interprets it as her giving him unnecessary notes and lying to him about whether or not he can use the word Facebook or not. So he becomes incredibly defensive, saying that, I don't understand what you're saying, you're not making sense. He asks other people, he's like, is she making sense to you? She's not making sense to me.
I think there's a chance that you guys might actually get together again.
It's fine that you're saying Facebook. I just want to say it too many times.
But she also said you Facebook stalked.
I know, so we can use it, but say if the opening montage doesn't have Facebook and it's like generic, whatever.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I
She
do.
says Facebook
No, I do.
stalk.
It's okay. It's okay.
Then why are you saying it's not okay?
Because she's saying it so many times that
so
it's
we can
like.
only say it once? So then we either can say it or we can't.
No, that's not.
Do you understand what she's saying?
It's.
No, I don't either.
Just,
okay.
just the
Let's
second
get to,
one, the line.
Let's get to acting notes and not like word notes.
Just completely disrespecting her in front of the cast and crew. On a collaborative effort like this, especially your first film, wouldn't you want to make a good name for yourself in the industry, like right off the bat? Once they got into the editing phase, his producer once again tells him that he needs to cut some scenes that are either too long or unnecessary, which is a very good point, especially for beginning directors. I feel like once you get into that type of content creation, it's really, really easy to say, I gotta keep all of this in, when in reality, you could probably take a good portion of it out.
If we do a cut, just take that scene out. I honestly don't even think you're gonna miss it.
We can try it.
We can try it.
I don't want to do that right now.
Why can't we do it right now? Cut.
That's why you're here for a couple days, and I just felt like after we watched it, I'd rather like be excited and talk about the movie, like just jumping into it, being like, "This is the problem."
No,
it's like,
but
well,
this is, can't not say anything. I'm not gonna sit here and just tell you like it's done, it's ready to go.
so we've been working our off on this for
You're
and
only,
it's awesome. I think it's really good. Your note, they're going to roll the tape back. It's going to go back to him saying that the first 25 minutes doesn't work because Tori's not in it. And then go to me saying, I think that I want to do it this way. That was the first note you went into. Is the one that you knew they were going to use.
No, I don't, Shane, because I'm not thinking about the TV show.
He also tries to tell his producers that when he said things like, I don't want to read the remarks or this and that, and I'm going to throw it in the garbage, blah, blah, blah. He says that it was a joke and that he was clearly joking. But if you go back and watch the footage, there's no indication that he's joking. There's no indication of sarcasm.
We have a movie that can still be better in the way that you envision it. Not about changing your vision. Do you see it as something that you still want to work on and make better? And
you guys, I'm really annoyed because I feel like I have not come across any less than a collaborative person. If you guys told me like, hey, I think there's a lot of work to it, I'd be like, okay, great, let's do it.
You won't read the notes?
I want to see all the notes.
You said the opposite to me. And you specifically told me that night, you guys are going to send me the notes and I'm never going to read them.
I mean, as a joke.
But it's been a week and you haven't read them either. So
I don't know where they are. Because I knew you guys were going to come and say, hey, listen, this is the consensus from the comments.
That's different than reading them.
I'm supposed to read every single part?
I read every single one.
And I don't want to say it's like gaslighting because I am not an expert in that kind of, I don't know, diagnosis, or I don't know. I don't know. Who's an expert in gaslighting? Gabby Hanna? I don't know. It's very manipulative of Shane to say to them that he's been more than collaborative and that he's been this and that, when that's quite literally not the truth. They also show the test audience viewing where they have a small group, a control group of people come in and view the film and give their first initial remarks so that hopefully the directors can go back and edit as much as they can to ensure that the movie is as enjoyable as possible. For Shane Dawson, not only did he not stand in there and get the remarks from the control audience, he refused to read the notes that were provided to him after.
Sorry to bother you. You're going to come back in to talk, right? I think you should. You don't want to hear what people say?
No. So what do you think's going to happen if you go in and listen?
I don't need to. I don't need to hear the pick party stuff. All that's fine. But to actually hear it, like, I don't need to.
And I just have to say, where does Shane get off with this kind of logic? I don't care if you're Steven fucking Spielberg or Alfred fucking Hitchcock. You take film criticism, especially from what is supposed to be your audience. Because if Shane wanted to make a real feature film one day, it's gonna be broadcasted to more than just his YouTube fans and subscribers. It's gonna be to people who don't get his sense of humor and are gonna be very critical of what he produces. So he doesn't take any of the criticism, he doesn't take any of the remarks, and later on he has another meeting with his producers where he says to them, no, I want to read the notes, you can send them to me, I haven't seen them yet, you haven't sent them. He minimizes himself, and it's so interesting to see the person at the beginning who was screaming and yelling and being aggressive to now being reserved and quiet and, oh, I just wanted to keep one scene in.
Listen, compromise a lot in this movie, but like, if I want one extra second, just let me have it.
No one's not letting you have it.
You shouldn't feel like I've compromised. I feel like you've learned and you've gotten notes.
There's certain things that I don't like that are still there. Like, I have definitely compromised.
You have final cut on it.
I feel like I've been very open to every note, every suggestion, everything. I've never, like, yelled at you guys that I don't know. Like, if I just want an extra beat somewhere, like, I feel like I deserve it at this point.
I've been yelled at for the record.
Shane really did have an opportunity to produce something, and he decided to not listen to anybody, only listen to himself, and at the end of the day, it has a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. There's also some interview footage of Shane saying that he doesn't need to hear what 5 white guys have to say about his movie that's for teenagers and blah blah blah. But to that I say, professional movie reviewers' job is to review movies. If it's objectively bad, it's bad. And I just find it so interesting that Shane Dawson has the backbone to snap at his producer in a controlled environment where he's the one on top, but the second that he is put into a corner like those in-person control group criticisms, he's suddenly too scared and too sensitive. None of this indicates to me that he's an empath, because he wouldn't be yelling at people. And regardless of what Shane was going through personally at the time, I know they talked a lot about how Shane wanted to really make sure he was presented in a certain way on camera, that his weight wouldn't be misconstrued or his size. I know he's got a lot of insecurities about that, and at that time it was really getting to him, but that's no excuse. It doesn't matter what you're going through. You're hurting people. For those of you who don't remember, Shane Dawson and Tati Westbrook actually became friends sometime in early 2019, and Shane Dawson was somewhat involved, let's say, with the By Sister video that Tati published that basically destroyed James Charles' career for a few months.
I did not make my video because of vitamins. I made it as a result of all of the poisonous lies that were fed to me by Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star.
But supposedly when uploading By Sister, Tati had reached out to Shane and asked, hey, is this something I should do while James is in Australia and away from his support system? And Shane, supposedly according to Tati, replied saying, James is a narcissist and he's too egotistical to kill himself, so don't worry about it.
The night before posting my video By Sister, I texted Shane sharing my concerns for James Charles, that he was out of the country on the high floor of a hotel and I was afraid for him hurting himself. Shane texted me back and said that I should not be nervous about the 50th floor, that James Charles was a narcissist and that he would never do that.
Now, you might not want to take Tati's word for it, but let's go back to when she published her Breaking My Silence video. Shane Dawson went live on his Instagram while reacting to Tati Westbrook's video, and in it she describes that she is also a victim of sexual abuse, and that is why she empathized so much with the stories that Jeffree and Shane were supposedly telling her about James. But when Tati says this in the video, Shane Dawson reacts by rolling his eyes and saying that she is fake crying, she's lying, she's manipulating, all this stuff.
This woman is a fucking, oh my god, I'm gonna wait till as many people get in here as possible because I'm losing my mind. Keep playing it.
So how is it that so many editorial outlets knew that something was coming before I...
Because you message drama channels! Oh my god.
From an alleged victim and told me to listen to the pain in her voice. The audio was clearly a small portion of the conversation. It wasn't enough for me to contact the authorities. It was enough to scare me.
Why would you make a video on the matter claiming these allegations?
Because she is a fucking... I don't want to say mean things about people. This is insane. This person literally... Oh my god. Okay, sorry. Keep pressing play. I need to get through this video so I can fucking... Oh my god.
As a victim of abuse myself.
Oh my god. You are so manipulative. You're fake crying. You are fake crying. That is not real. Oh my god. Oh my god. I was molested. I have been... Oh my god. That is not...
I made no mention of it in my video.
Oh my god.
The night before posting my video By Sister.
Oh my god.
I texted Shane sharing my concerns for
Now, I don't know what kind of person has to be so fucked up to hear a victim of sexual abuse and say to them that they're lying and that they're manipulating by bringing that up, but Shane Dawson's response tells me that he is not empathetic because he himself admitted 2 seconds later that he is also a victim of sexual abuse. So would him bringing it up not also be manipulative, or is it just because it's Tati and she's saying things that are not flattering about you? It shows that Shane doesn't hold others to the same standard as himself, and he cannot be an empath in that way. He has to feel for everybody in some kind of way and know that it's not right to lash out at people. But he does. He screams at Tati on his Instagram Live. But let's look at something else Shane Dawson did around that time in 2020. He published this beauty community manifesto, and in it, he said things like, and I quote, "The beauty gurus who are always involved in scandals are all the fucking same. They are all attention-seeking, game-playing, egocentric, narcissistic, vengeful, two-faced, ticking time bombs ready to explode. And I'm over it. Yes, they are talented, creative, smart, and love makeup, but they are also joined a side of the internet that is obsessed with looks, money, power, fame, and screenshots." Does that sound like somebody who approaches life in an empathetic way? Now we're going to talk about Shane's weird fascination with sexualizing and having sex with animals. Now, I'm going to preface this and say I don't think Shane actually did hurt any animal in this way, but the amount of times he made jokes about it is just uncomfortable, and I feel as an animal lover myself, I have to take a moment and express how disgusted I am by this kind of content.
As I was mid-story about one incident where my dog licked my butthole while I was masturbating and I didn't push him away. Come on, we've all been there.
Okay, it was an accident. So you're like,
Oh my god, you are like the most disgusting person ever. Like, literally.
no, I know. It was an accident, and I was licking her, I was blowing on her stomach or whatever, and then she jumped up and kicked, and then her whole vagina was in my mouth, and Lisa started screaming, and I started screaming. And Courtney was like, "You're good at that." And I was like, "Oh."
Such a liar.
Now, most famously is a clip from Shane's old podcast in which he describes a time that he raped his cat. I don't know if there's another way to say it. And when he's explaining the story, there's no indication that it's a joke. There's no indication that it's a fraudulent story. And the people on the podcast are audibly uncomfortable with what he just said.
One time, I laid my cat down on her back.
Did you get arrested for this?
I don't know. No.
Think about it.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I didn't penetrate. I laid the cat down on her back, and then I moved her little chicken legs, like, spread open or whatever. And I was like, if I just, hump, but, on her tummy, that's not weird. Whatever. And then I humped it, and it kept going, and I came all over the cat.
No, you did not.
It was, my first sexual experience.
No
I was also,
way.
19, so it's
Wait a second. Did you just say you came on a cat?
Guys, I think I have to put money in the meter.
Yeah, right?
Now, this clip had resurfaced sometime later, and Shane Dawson went on an entire Twitter rampage about how he doesn't have sex with his cat. He never had sex with his cat, and that this was a sick skit idea that he came up with some time ago and decided to never do, and he's glad he didn't. And he's saying that he would never, and that the people who would believe that are sick, and all this other stuff. He made a really big to-do about the fact that it didn't happen, but the way he describes it in the podcast clip sounds like it happened. And I just don't understand, even if Shane's whole shtick back then was that he is so outrageous and offensive and all these things, why involve animals? Out of all the things that you could say that could be offensive and obscene, you bring animals into it in a sexual way? That's just so specific and weird. Now, where did this narrative of Shane being an empath really come from? Because it's not like he was producing any kind of content that would say that, nor does any kind of narrative online that had anything to do with Shane would indicate that either. Where did this come from? Where did we go? Where are we coming from? Cotton Eye Joe. Now, this is totally my theory and speculation, but I believe that Shane Dawson, after having to completely halt all of his racist and problematic content in 2014, he made a shift into doing like review videos of food and doing these little like conspiracy videos, blah, blah, blah. But right after that kind of interim, Shane started producing videos with his friend Drew more often, as well as Garrett Watts, who I've talked about before in a previous video with him, Shane Dawson, and Andrew Swansky? I don't know. But him and Andrew, right? I think around the time that Shane started working with Drew and Garrett more, he kind of saw how their audiences really loved Drew and Garrett for who they were. Both Garrett and Drew as content creators tend to be more on the relatable side. Drew is very much like you or me. He has a humble home, an apartment, and someone like Garrett, who is very eclectic, very creative, and very out there, they both ended up speaking to audiences that really enjoy that kind of empathetic and kind-natured person. So Shane, seeing how this worked and seeing the reception of it, I believe decided to take on this persona of a very relatable, very kind-hearted person, although there is no evidence to back that up. I think he accredits it to that video he made with Bobby Burns, where Bobby made a super justified criticism of Shane Dawson in one of his videos, and Shane decided to invite him to California to work on a video that was titled Confronting My Hater. Now, I don't know if Bobby knew what the narrative of this series was going to be. It ended with everyone hating Bobby Burns and him making a very weird career shift. We won't talk about that. That needs to be another day. We've come to the final section, which is titled Shane Dawson is Not Cancelled. Now, I've meant every single one of these titles very literally, and I mean it when I say Shane Dawson's not cancelled. He recently published a 3-part series on his channel, each one getting over 1 million views each. Granted, it's not the tens of millions that he was getting before, but he still obviously has an interested and dedicated audience despite all of the stuff that I have discussed with you so far. But the reason that he even made a 2020 apology video was after he published that little manifesto about the beauty community and said that James Charles deserved a slice of humble pie the size of an Empire State Building. A lot of people decided to search for the audacity that Shane had in saying that. They looked for his old content. A lot of it resurfaced on Twitter and was retweeted to new audiences that were only familiar with the version of Shane that he had carefully crafted to be an empathetic, relatable person, not the racist, blackface, sexual predator that he was depicting for so many years. In this 2020 apology video, Shane opens by saying that he saw what Jenna Marbles did in her taking accountability video, and it really inspired him to make this one. Now, I don't know why an empath would need to be inspired to apologize to people, but Shane says that was the motivation behind this video. In Jenna Marbles' apology and taking accountability video, she sits down and addresses the 2 instances where she had portrayed blackface or said something that was racist. And in that, she did not say she was a different person. She didn't say that she was angry and this and that, and that's why they did it. And she didn't explain anything away. She sat there, took accountability in saying that this was wrong, I did that, and I apologize. Whereas in Shane's video, he brings up the same narrative of he was angry, he's not the same person, and that he would never say those jokes now, and blah, 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 blah.
Deleting videos or untagging my Instagram things or literally doing whatever I can to pretend like those things didn't happen. Because yes, I apologize for a lot of them, but I'm 31, almost 32. Those apologies suck. I don't know who that person is anymore. Every apology video I've ever made has been from fear. I saw Jenna Marbles' video, and it really inspired me, and felt like a sign from the universe that I want to do this. Now, years later, I look back at that, and I've talked about this before, but when I say I hate that person, I mean it in the most intense way possible. I hate that person so much. That person was filled with sadness, filled with anger about their own issues, in the closet, constantly projecting on others, just like, I don't know, just that person is someone who I don't like seeing.
And although he says, I've done blackface a lot, like a lot, and it was offensive, and I contributed to this, he still follows it up with a, but I was angry, but I was a different person. And that is not an apology. It's not. When you say you're sorry, you apologize. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, especially about something as serious as this. This is the part where I kind of got really yelly, so I'm trying hard not to do that again. He claims that his previous apologies were meaningless because he was just addressing things too quickly, but that's exactly what he's doing in this video as well. Right before he published this apology, another clip had surfaced of Shane mimicking masturbating while looking at a poster of Willow Smith, who was underage at the time. And it garnered so much attention that Jaden Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith both tweeted at him trying to hold him accountable and saying that this is unforgivable. Not only did that surface, but also the "Hey, it's Millie" stuff, along with a bunch of other things that Shane just did not give enough time to address in this video. He misses a lot of the marks and again uses that very generalized statements of, I'm sorry I did dumb stuff, I'm sorry I did gross stuff. He does bring up the fact that he had that really inappropriate conversation with his cousin, but he makes it seem like that was the only thing that he did with children that was weird. Not the Omegle chats, not the "Hey, it's Millie" stuff, not any of the weird things he did with fans that had been coming up due to his Twitter statement. And had he given himself maybe another week or so for everything to fully come into fruition, he could have sat down and addressed this properly, apologizing for all of his actions and moving forward in a better way, but he didn't. He rushed to apologize without taking proper inventory of what he's apologizing for. And then he makes a statement that the things that he did in the past was something he should have lost his career for, and that at this present moment, he's willing to lose everything because of what he's done and what he's gotten away with at this point. Now, I can agree that he should have lost everything well before this video even came out, but in him continuing to upload to YouTube, he doesn't seem to really think that. When he's saying that, I think it's the same as when your friend's apologizing and being like, I'll do whatever you want for a week, or I'll dump all my friends for you, or I'll let you do this and that. It's this extreme offering that has nothing behind it. And then he brings up a lot of his family stuff and a lot of his personal struggles, and I've said this before, but I'm gonna reiterate it again. It does not matter what you are going through personally. It does not justify your actions, especially if they are racist. The only good thing he does in this video is that he apologizes to Jessica Lee, who was one of the many content creators at the time that pointed out the awful content that Shane was making, and he apologizes for it not because he didn't take the time to watch her video and appreciate the effort she put into communicating to him specifically, or content creators like him, that what he was doing was wrong. He brings it up because in another one of his stupid podcast episodes, he talks about how he would plan to kill somebody, and a lot of people were thinking or suspecting that he was talking about Jessica at the time. And he clarifies that it wasn't her, it was somebody else. And he says regardless, it was wrong, which that's the one thing we can agree on. He also says that the podcast was such a source of terrible things for him and that he's glad that he canceled it. But babe, let me remind you that you didn't cancel your own podcast. The platform in which your podcast was on got canceled. So it wasn't even like you were really reflecting on the awful shit you were posting on there. You were just cut, which shows again that he just likes to frame things in a way that makes him seem like the victim every time. It's like, I was this and I was that. Look at me, poor me. After that 2020 apology, Shane kind of went into hiding for a little bit and took a break from social media, although he did come back a few times to promote the restock of his palette and the merchandise he made with Jeffree Star. His official comeback was in October of 2021, where he published a 3-part series about something in Colorado. It was also a house tour, and it was just, again, a whole lot of nothing. All of Shane's docuseries are just lots of nothing. But in this series, the first video shows me that he has not taken the time to truly take accountability for himself and his actions. At the beginning of the house tour, he shows some decor that has a lot of writing on it, and one of the things on it says, "We forgive in this house." And he points to it, looks to the camera, and says, "That's something you all should get to doing too."
Cute, right? In this house, we laugh a lot, we count our blessings, we see, I can't even get through it, but it's really cute.
I still don't like it.
We say I'm sorry. Yes, we do. Don't worry, I'll get to that.
Oh gosh.
We make mistakes. Yes, we do. I'll get to that. We forgive quickly. How about you get to that?
And there's also a part in the series where Shane starts reminiscing on his older content and shows clips from it, but it's only the most positive looking clips, like him holding a child and him as Shanae, which again shows me he's not really resentful of that content because he keeps glorifying it way after. And I understand if Shane is just not capable of that kind of self-criticism. I mean, it's evident in the fact that he just refused to listen to anybody about his film, let alone his cancellation. But at this point, he's a 30-something-year-old man. You need to sit down, look at yourself in the mirror and say, I've done these things, they were wrong, and that's bad. No more explanations, no more pussyfooting around, no more frantic speaking. Like, you are so able to articulate yourself accurately and concisely in a video, and yet you choose to for like 40 minutes straight. But Shane Dawson's career path is not ending anytime soon. He spoke about writing a horror movie script while he's out in Colorado and that he's super inspired to push further and create better things. If Shane is really trying to pursue a career as a director in the industry that we have today, he needs to have some self-reflection and self-criticism and be susceptible to criticism from his peers. Because I can guarantee you his fan base is not strong enough to watch every single piece of trash he puts out if it hasn't been carefully examined and curated the way movies should be. Shane Dawson is not canceled because he won't let himself be canceled. He will continue to misconstrue, misrepresent, and manipulate his fan base in order to cling to some kind of relevancy on the internet when he himself has admitted that this content should have him removed promptly and swiftly. But with all that, that's the end. I'm off script. I've read all my notes. Do you guys want to see? I got an iPad. Oh, we've upgraded. There was so much to talk about. Ooh, you guys want to see my background? It's Keo from Fruit Basket. We love him. If you made it this far, thank you. I appreciate it, and I hope that we can keep the discussion going further in the comments. I know there's so much that I didn't cover because this video would just be never ending, and I don't have the mental capacity anymore. I'm done. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're interested in this kind of content, and follow me on my socials that are linked down below. I really want to express how wonderful this community that we've created on this channel is. There's a lot of people who come back for my videos and they leave the most wonderful comments. So thank you so much for being so supportive and giving me feedback and keeping conversations going. I can't tell you how much of a dream it is to make this kind of stuff and build this kind of community with you all. I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Hey guys, not finger guns. We're in 2022 now. And despite the many times his controversies, I can't say this word. Controversy. Am I too yellow? I might be a little yellow. Dabba do dabba die. I need something to fuck with while I'm talking. It's a Sailor Moon brush my coworker got me. It's cute, huh? Vroom vroom. Why? Why do we gotta see penis, Mom? Rude as fuck. Dirt biking, Fast and Furiousing on my streets? The nerve.